The 1950s. By 1958, Packard was on its last legs, and the Hawk was a desperate attempt to rebrand the brand as something hip and sporty. They took a Studebaker Golden Hawk, slapped on a gaudy fiberglass front end that looked like it was pinched straight off a speedboat, and called it a Packard. The result? A car that looked like it was trying to cosplay as a European sports car, but ended up resembling a fish with a severe overbite. Under the hood, though, the Hawk had some real muscle. The 275 horsepower, supercharged 289 V8 could actually hustle the hefty two-door coupe from 0 to 60 in around 9.2 seconds. But despite its brawny engine, the Packard Hawk couldn't shake its bizarre styling. With a faux spare tire hump at the rear, a mesh grille that screamed, "I'm trying too hard," and a mishmash of chrome accents that looked like they were picked out by a committee that couldn't agree on anything, it was automotive kitsch at its finest. Only 588 were built, making it a rare sight today. The 1960s. Dodge decided to take the relatively mild-mannered Dart and stuff it with a fire-breathing 413 V8, creating a straight-line monster that looked like it should be delivering groceries, but was instead tearing up drag strips. With a cross-ram intake setup and dual 4-barrel carburetors, the Max Wedge pumped out a ferocious 420 horsepower, enough to rocket the Dart down the quarter-mile in the low 14-second, a blistering time for 1962. But let's talk about the looks. The 62 Dart was, well, not exactly a prom queen. Up front, the Dart's bug-eyed headlights and gaping maw of a grille gave it the appearance of a fish gasping for air, and not in a good way. Despite its quirky, slightly goofy looks, the Dart Max Wedge was a serious contender in the burgeoning muscle car wars, sending many a rival back to the drawing board with its relentless torque and unapologetically loud exhaust note. Only 55 units were equipped with a 413 Max Wedge engine, making it a rare beast today, one that still commands respect from those who know that beneath the awkward styling was a drag strip terror that didn't care about looking good, only going fast. The 1970s. Ford was scrambling to keep the Mustang relevant in the era of emissions regulations, skyrocketing gas prices, and neutered performance. Enter the King Cobra, a last-ditch effort to inject some muscle car swagger back into the Mustang II lineup. It came decked out in gold pinstriping snake decals that looked like a comic book artist designed them on a sugar high, but under the hood, things were less dramatic. The King Cobra's mighty 302 V8 churned out a measly 139 horsepower, a number that would make a lawnmower blush today. Despite its wild, cartoonish appearance, it could only manage a sluggish 0 to 60 in around 10 seconds, and it handled about as well as a sofa on roller skates. But what the King Cobra lacked in actual performance, it made up for in pure 70s excess. It also had T-tops for that extra dose of questionable coolness. Today, the King Cobra is a bit of a cult classic, beloved by some for its outrageous styling and reviled by others as the definitive example of the Mustang's darkest days. Only about 4,300 were ever built. The 1980s. Based on the humble Dodge Omni, the Shelby Charger tried to look fast and furious with its racing stripes, aero body kit, and Shelby badging plastered everywhere, but it was more fake-it-till-you-make-it than actual fire-breathing muscle. Under the hood, it packed a 2.2-liter four-cylinder engine cranking out a whopping 107 horsepower. Yep, you read that right. 107 horses. That's barely enough to outrun a postal van, but with some suspension tweaks and a 5-speed manual, the Shelby Charger was surprisingly fun to toss around corners. It wouldn't win any drag races, but it handled better than you'd expect from a front-drive Econobox with delusions of grandeur. The '83 Shelby Charger was, well, aggressively 80s. With its squared-off lines, massive side graphics, and color-coded bumpers, it looked like a car designed by a guy who just discovered what radical meant. Yet, despite its modest power and questionable aesthetics, the Shelby Charger had a certain underdog charm. The 1990s. By the late 90s, the Camaro was deep into its fourth generation, and Chevy decided it was time to stuff a Corvette heart into their pony car. Enter the Z28 SS, a steroid-enhanced Camaro packing the all-new 5.7-liter LS1 V8 under its long hood. With 320 horsepower and 345 torque, it could launch from 0 to 60 in a blistering 5.1 seconds, a far cry from the neutered, emissions-choked Camaros of the 80s. But while the SS had the muscle to back up its bravado, its styling was, let's say, an acquired taste. The front end looked like it was melting, with a pair of catfish-style headlights that seemed to droop like a sad bulldog's jowls. Out back, the optional SS wing was big enough to host a small family picnic. But who cared? The Z28 SS was a burnout machine, a tire-shredding quarter-mile killer that could eat Mustangs for breakfast and ask for seconds. Plus, the LS1 engine was practically bulletproof, earning it a cult following among drag racers and budget hot rodders. The 2000s. Chevy's last attempt at injecting some performance cred into the Monte Carlo before pulling the plug was to stuff a 5.3-liter V8 under the hood. With 303 horsepower and 323 torque, it could launch the front-wheel drive coupe to 60 in about 6 seconds. Not bad for a car that looked like a rental special. But while the engine could haul, the styling couldn't hide. The Monte Carlo SS looked like a bloated NASCAR wannabe, with its stretched, slab-sided profile and chunky rear end that seemed to go on forever. The pseudo-sporty body kit and SS badging felt like a half-hearted attempt to remind people that, yes, this was supposed to be a muscle car, even if it had the aerodynamics of a brick and the handling of a soggy mattress. But hey, at least you got a nice thumping exhaust note and a surprisingly roomy trunk, perfect for hauling groceries while pretending you're Dale Earnhardt Jr. Today, the 2007 Monte Carlo SS is mostly forgotten, a weird final hurrah for a car that had once been a true NASCAR hero but ended up as a front-wheel drive V8-powered mullet mobile. The 2010s. Dodge decided to inject some serious horsepower into the Charger by cramming a 6.4-liter Hemi V8 under the hood, cranking out a tire-shredding 470 horsepower and 470 torque. That meant this full-size sedan could sprint from 0 to 60 in a neck-snapping 4.3 seconds, and if you kept your foot planted, it would top out at 175 miles per hour. Not exactly what you'd expect from a four-door family hauler. It had a face like a bulldog chewing a wasp, all scowling headlights, gaping grille, and enough angry creases to make a bodybuilder's biceps look soft. Out back, the racetrack LED taillights wrapped around the entire rear end like a neon beer sign at a dive bar. However, all this cannot hide its true muscular nature, still strong and powerful. The 2020s. Dodge took its three-row family SUV and crammed in a 6.2-liter supercharged Hemi V8, unleashing a staggering 710 horsepower and 645 torque. This beast rockets from 0 to 60 in just 3.5 seconds, making it the fastest three-row SUV on the planet at the time of its release. But while the performance is jaw-dropping, the styling is more suburban stealth than track day terror. The Durango Hellcat looks like a regular Durango that's been hitting the gym and steroids simultaneously, with swollen fenders and a front end that looks ready to inhale pedestrians. Yet, despite the absurdity, there's a twisted appeal to the Durango Hellcat. It's a ridiculous, unnecessary, absolutely bonkers SUV that makes no sense, and that's exactly why it's so hard not to love it.